Before the total destruction of humanity destined by the gods, they decided to give humanity a chance and a test. Suddenly, dungeons began appearing all over the world, and if people didn't achieve a certain result in them, all of humanity would be destroyed. Kai-kun says he's already become a seeker and asks what Suzuki Hinata thinks about it. Suzuki Hinata calls it incredible. Kai-kun says that for a level 0 like Suzuki Hinata, this is impossible. Then he laughs. Suzuki Hinata explains that ever since the dungeons opened on Earth, the concept of levels was born, and a society has grown in the world where the strong bully the weak. And I'm the weakest. A man shouts that Suzuki Hinata is the seeker. The guy laughs and says it's impossible, and another man laughs and asks if it's really him. Suzuki Hinata says that maybe they are right. The guy tells Suzuki Hinata that he is level 0 and has F-rank potential, and asks how he is going to clear dungeons as the weakest in the world. Suzuki Hinata says that although his level hasn't increased yet, perhaps it will in the future. The man expresses surprise. Suzuki Hinata explains that Kai-kun isn't the first to tell him this, and that everyone around him ridiculed and despised him simply because he was a level 0. He explains that because of him, everyone quickly found out he was a level 0, and asks why Kai came here. Kai laughs and calls Suzuki Hinata a permanent level 0. Today's ranking of researchers is as follows. Suzuki Hinata explains that the ranking is determined by achievements earned in dungeons, and that the top 100 chosen by everyone are heroes. He explains that the dungeons are full of various monsters and dangers, and even if he can form a party with someone, he'll be able to. The guy explains that she's the daughter of the Kamui clan leader, Hinata, and asks if she'll agree to go with him if he talks to her. Another guy says she's apparently already joined the student council. The next guy explains that he heard she has S-rank potential. Suzuki Hinata says it's Kamui Hinata. The guy says that he gets goosebumps from the looks, and says that he got the seat behind Hinata. Suzuki Hinata introduces himself, explains that he's enrolled in Kirin Middle School, hasn't decided on a club yet, and that he and a 5th-ranked girl share the same name. The girl says she'd be thrilled if they could become friends. He informs her that the dorm is quite large. Kyono introduces herself as the dorm manager and says that from now on she's counting on Suzuki Hinata. She hands him a set of rules and asks him to make sure he remembers them, to which he replies that of course. The girl says it's wonderful. The girl explains that everyone has the same rank, so she asks how the group's creation will be calculated and is happy about it. The guy explains that he was just looking for a group and says that means the decision has been made. Suzuki Hinata introduces himself and says his rank is F. The girl asks, rank F? The girl apologizes, and the boy says she's surprised there's no seeker living in the dorm and asks if that's true. The woman explains that Seishin High School prioritizes seekers. Suzuki Hinata says that, frankly, he doesn't know how he got in. The man says that Suzuki Hinata wears gloves to hide his rank, to which he responds affirmatively. Rank indicates the potential humanity is given at birth, with the maximum being S rank and the minimum being F rank. Suzuki Hinata says something in surprise. The girl explains that just because he's an F rank doesn't mean he can't succeed, and clarifies that having little potential doesn't always mean being weak. Even A rank adventurers can get stuck in their development, but S rank is an exception. The guy says that if he works hard, he'll definitely succeed, and the girl explains that as long as he keeps leveling up, he still has a chance. The man says he hasn't heard of any successful F-rank adventurers yet. Suzuki Hinata says he knew becoming a seeker would be incredibly difficult for him. He says he's an F-rank and his level is 0, which is usually where people start. His sister asks if he's settled into his new school and tells him that he'll also work hard to get into Seishin next year. He says he asked her not to text him for a while. Suzuki Hinata reveals that one of the reasons he entered Seishin High School was to provide a comfortable life for his mother and sister, and thought that becoming a seeker would allow him to earn a lot of money, but with such success, he can't give up. He says he can't just give up. The woman explains that the nearest beginner dungeon is E117, and for adventurers, the most important thing is their lives, so they shouldn't overexert themselves. They should do what they can and come back. Suzuki Hinata confirms this with a decisive yes. Suzuki Hinata asks if anyone is there. The girl greets him and asks if this is his first time, to which he replies, yes. The girl informs him that this is the Seishin High School uniform and that she will now issue him his license, adding that she is counting on him. The girl asks where the box is and suggests it might be in the utility room, explaining where she put it. The girl asks to wait a minute. Suzuki Hinata explains that this crystal is used to assess potential, and the color represents rank. He offers to look at it after all this time. The man touches the crystal, which begins to glow. Suzuki Hinata says he remembers. He explains that potential has color, so an A rank is an A rank, and if the color is black, it means there is no color. Suzuki Hinata explains that, in other words, there are no abilities, and this is called level 0. He explains that it's as if he was consumed by darkness. Suzuki Hinata says he doesn't understand why this happened to him and exclaims. The girl announces that she's back. The woman asks if anyone's there and where Suzuki Hinata disappeared to, then explains that he might have gone home. He panics, screaming that he's falling and asking what the hell is going on. Suzuki Hinata says he's still falling and asks if he's falling. He explains that it's so dark he can't see anything and asks where he is. He reports that through hardship, the skill Dungeon Information was acquired and activated, and that Lucifer's fall was analyzed. Suzuki Hinata asks if he's inside a dungeon and wonders what Lucifer's fall means. He then says, "Wait, what's that voice?" and explains that through hardship he's acquired the skill Reconnaissance of the surrounding area. He says something strange is happening, then he suddenly grabs his hand. Suzuki Hinata explains that through hardship he's acquired the skill of resisting foreign objects. Then the man kicks him and he falls to the ground. Through hardship he's acquired the skill of resistance to abnormal conditions. Suzuki Hinata says that abnormality resistance has evolved to abnormality resistance average. Suzuki Hinata is asking for help. It is reported that resistance to abnormal conditions has evolved, high, maximum, and immunity to abnormal conditions. Suzuki Hinata says this is his room and asks if it was a dream. He says it's a relief. He thought that if the guy passed out in the dungeon, it was certain death. Suzuki Hinata says that, as he thought, he's still in a dungeon and wonders how long he's been unconscious and what that voice was. He says he's only heard about skills in games and doesn't quite understand what they are. Suzuki Hinata asks if he'll automatically gain skills if something happens. He explains that the ability to scout the surrounding area is very useful and creates a strange sensation, as if he's looking at a camera in the corner of the screen. He also explains that the air contains extreme amounts of toxic and paralyzing substances, and says that he and the paralytic don't even want to think about what happened. Suzuki Hinata says that it's so dark here anyway, he can still see the stars and the castle in the distance, but through hardship he's acquired the skill night vision. He notes that everything is so clear now. Suzuki Hinata says that, come to think of it, he's read about a lot of different traps. He shouts that he has found water. He says that despite his resistance to hunger, he still feels thirsty and considers this a blessing. Suzuki Hinata explains that it's a weird color due to night vision, but whatever. He then says it didn't taste like that and expresses that it tastes terrible. He reports that the surrounding area is silent. He explains that Vitality Recovery has evolved into Vitality Recovery High. He says this means there's water. He spots danger and asks if there are monsters nearby. Suzuki Hinata says that the absolute immunity saved him again. He's not underestimating the dungeon at all, but he should be more careful. He walks through the forest and examines the rocks. He says he's been walking for a long time but can't find the exit. Suzuki Hinata says he doesn't have a dungeon adventurer's license yet, and asks how he even got into the dungeon, worried if everything will be okay. He feels a strange sensation and asks what it is, noticing someone nearby. Suzuki Hinata suggests it might be a monster. He wonders if this is the dungeon's boss floor or one of the unusual monsters. He says that first he needs to hide and wait for the monster to go away. Then he makes a frightened sound. Suzuki Hinata screams in terror as he runs away from the monster. He says the situation is dire and he needs to get away from here immediately. He reports that due to the danger, he acquired the skill Speed Boost and evolved it into Speed Boost Intermediate. He says he can figure this out without prompting. He runs away from an approaching large monster. Suzuki Hinata screams in surprise. A large dinosaur-like creature appears on the cliff, roars, and rapidly descends. He evolved into Speed Boost High, then Speed Boost Maximum, then Speed Boost Hyperspeed. He says he was able to escape just fine. Suzuki Hinata says it's a forest and states that it doesn't matter how fast he's running in this place. He then stops abruptly and looks at the enormous monster standing before him. The monster glares at him. Suzuki Hinata laughs hysterically. He reports that despite being considered a useless researcher with a 0 level, he will cope. Suzuki Hinata says, damn it, he'll have to fight, but he can do it. He says he can't die, and if he fights the enemy, he might gain even more skills and have a chance. Suzuki Hinata says he can do it. He watches as the creature rises into the air. Then the creature lands with force, causing a powerful explosion. Afterwards, it pushes off the ground with a powerful blast of air. Suzuki Hinata reports that he's been running so much that he's exhausted. He explains that his new skill, Stamina Enhancement, has given him the ability to escape. He acquired this skill due to the danger. He says he's tired and asks why the enemy isn't attacking. He wonders why he's not acting. Suzuki Hinata reports that this is a lake of dangerous poison. He explains that it's possible and throws something into the water. Then Suzuki Hinata notices something and quickly retreats as a menacing beast appears nearby. He laughs and gets ready to throw something at the dinosaur. The dinosaur roars and approaches Suzuki Hinata. He yells, "Take a bath," and throws the object at the monster. Suzuki Hinata says he's confident that the enemy is afraid of poisonous water. He then strikes, causing a splash and damaging the monster. He shouts, getting attention. The fire monster roars and runs. He reports that the notes of new seekers say to be careful about the idea of defeating monsters. Suzuki Hinata shoots a stream of water and says he thinks a couple of bones will come in handy for clearing the dungeon. He then explains that the monster disassembly skill is an active skill. Suzuki Hinata says he acquired the monster disassembly skill because it was a good idea. He explains that active skills are those that you need to use yourself, while passive skills always work, and depending on the situation, it is important to use them correctly. Suzuki Hinata says they'll use monster disassembly, causing an explosion. He then screams, "Ouch!" as a huge monster appears in front of him. He says the amount of material is incredible. Then he sees bones and skin, after which he suddenly exclaims. Suzuki Hinata says he's heard that magic stones in E-rank dungeons range from 10 to 30 seminars, and this one is clearly larger. He asks if it's a magic stone. He explains that they're used to generate energy and create weapons, and he thinks the stone will sell for a good price. He says that now he doesn't know what to do with it and asks how he can take it all away. Suzuki Hinata says that if he had a magical backpack, it would help him carry everything at once and wonders if such a skill exists. The man reports that he had hope, but it is faded. He says he acquired the subspace skill for a good idea and rates it as excellent. Suzuki Hinata says that he can pick up anything just by thinking and put it back as well, which is very useful. He says he can't put poisonous water in and can't store things from the dungeons, asking if he can store liquid. He says there's no point in thinking about it any further and that he needs to move on. Suzuki Hinata says that even though he somehow defeated that enormous monster, 0 multiplied by any number is still 0. He says his level is still 0. Several creatures with pointed ears and spiky fur are seen standing in a cave. Suzuki Hinata reports that the monsters now look like rabbits and thinks he'll be able to get past them. He then exclaims in surprise and disbelief that this is happening again. He asks what the branches are doing and notices it's a trap. He reports that due to the difficulty, he's acquired the trap detection skill and the trap disabling skill. Suzuki Hinata says that compared to them, they are much slower and expresses surprise. Suzuki Hinata dodges the creature's attack. He says their movements and attacks seem to be in slow motion. He explains that it's because of the skill that increases agility. The guy says okay. Suzuki Hinata asks if the increase in agility is enough for him. Suzuki Hinata says to try this by hitting the creature. The beast screams. He strikes with his fist, after which it is reported that the skill, strengthening the arm muscles, has been obtained due to practice. Suzuki Hinata says he's been looking forward to this and can actually gain skill through practice. He then strikes his opponents. Strengthening his arm muscles evolved into martial arts due to practice, and that martial arts evolves. He reports that he's gained the skills emergency dodge, pressure resistance, and fear resistance. He says his body moves naturally, and he doesn't feel constrained or afraid. He explains that even though his level isn't growing, he's happy to be gaining skills. After all, if he doesn't grow, he'll become a burden to his team. Suzuki Hinata says he needs to gain more skills. He says that if you work hard, you will be rewarded, and he says that he will make these words come true. Suzuki Hinata reports that he has collected enough meat, bones, skin, and magic stones. He explains that these magic stones are much larger than those described in the book and must be different in some way. He says that first, he just needs to survive, and he'll collect materials and stones until he leaves this place. Then he spots an exit and runs towards it. He says this is his first dungeon and first monster. Suzuki Hinata says this is his first time out. The girl says she can't believe it. Suzuki Hinata says he's scared. The girl remains silent. He says, ha and ah, The girl asks if he's okay. The girl screams that the guy scared her and asks him to at least make some noise before approaching a reception desk. Suzuki Hinata apologizes. The girl asks if he is a former student, and he clarifies that he is a former student. Suzuki Hinata says he was unconscious there all day and is glad to have survived. The girl informs him that he doesn't have a license. Suzuki Hinata is surprised and asks what he's going to do, since a license is required for many places. The girl says okay and asks to put her hand on the box. Suzuki Hinata answers yes. Suzuki Hinata looks at the girl with a tricky look. The girl asks what this black fog is and expresses surprise. The man explains that it's his fog and he's been at level 0 since birth. The girl, shocked, repeats the word 0. The man says everything is fine. Suzuki Hinata says he knows he can fight in an E-rank dungeon, and even if he can't kill the strong monsters, he can still defeat more weak ones and sell their magic stones for money. Suzuki Hinata says this will help his mother, and he'll be able to make his sister happy. A surprising change in rankings is reported, with a new searcher taking the top spot, but for some unknown reason, his name is displayed as the new first place's seeker points are incredible, something history has never seen before. Suzuki Hinata says first place is awesome and he'll get into that top spot one day. He also says that right after life gets better. The man explains that the world changed dramatically that day due to the sudden appearance of. The woman explains that no one knew about it, not even the unknown himself. The man explains that the legend starts from scratch. The shopping mall reported that Hinata Suzuki, who was ranked F and level 0, the weakest in the entire world, managed to clear the beginner dungeon E117 and successfully debuted as an explorer. Now he wants to exchange the items he received for money. The screen shows that the X-rank magic stone cannot be appraised. Suzuki Hinata shouts out why and asks what is meant by unable to appraise. A guy asks if he can sell some items, and the screen says that if an appraisal is not possible, he should contact an appraiser at the consultation center. He asks what the items are, mentioning mystical bones, unknown skin, and another item, and is told that an appraisal is not possible. Suzuki Hinata says the machine might be broken and reports that he has nothing left except small magic stones. He's surprised that a simple rabbit magic stone could be so expensive and adds that he still has a couple of them. Suzuki Hinata explains that, for starters, the man says he feels tired for some reason. The girl reacts with surprise and talks about. The woman greets Suzuki Hinata and tells him she's home. Suzuki Hinata apologizes and explains that he went underground yesterday and didn't return on time, and the woman explains that he went underground right after entering high school. The woman says his life should come first and asks him not to overdo it. He's surprised and asks if she believes him. The woman confirms she does and advises him to wash his clothes right away. He notices she hasn't noticed his condition, and the woman replies. The woman says Suzuki isn't a seeker and congratulates him on his first successful raid. Suzuki is surprised, then thanks her, and admits that he has indeed become a seeker. There's a sign on the wall that says, laundry. Suzuki Hinata is standing nearby. The guy presses the elevator button. The girl asks what dungeon the guy went to. The guy replies that it was the E117 rank dungeon. The girl explains that everyone comes back dirty the first time. The guy says that he thought Mrs. Sina was a bit cold, but she has such a beautiful. Suzuki Hinata says that for some reason he was pulled into the dungeon, but luckily he managed to return unharmed. The girl explains that everyone wants to go to a D-rank dungeon first and is surprised by this. She stops Suzuki Hinata and says he went there. He says he'll do it next time and that he's right. The girl explains that even though she's not very strong, she can definitely help in an E-rank dungeon, and if he wants, he can call her. Suzuki Hinata says thank you. He says he'll be useful one day too, and calls Fujikun a good guy. Then Suzuki Hinata says another day of school has passed. A guy says hi to Kaikun. Kai says hey, Zero, and offers to step aside for a few words. The guy replies, okay. Two men walk along the roof of a building. The manga's title and author information are in the background. Suzuki Hinata reveals that Kai is a classmate of his at school who always looked down on him. He explains that to him Kai is a symbol of terror. He says that it is only because of his resistance to fear and pressure that he does not feel anything like this now. The guy greets him with Haida-kun. Suzuki Hinata replies, ha. Suzuki Hinata says that even though he's a level 0, if Haida pushes him, he'll definitely be able to fight back. Haida says that's true. Haida yells, let's get started, and he says he has always been so slow and expresses surprise. Suzuki Hinata reveals that he used this move to scare him in middle school, but the rabbit monsters from the E-rank dungeon were far more dangerous. The man yells that he's a bastard and expresses anger at Hinata, calling him damn Hinata and asking. He says he can now. The man behind him expresses great surprise. He punches the man. Suzuki Hinata notices the sudden movement and reacts with surprise. The man quickly dodges, expressing amazement. It is reported that the cold resistance skill was acquired through high exposure. He is surprised by the cold. The woman orders him to stop. The man shouts that it is none of his business and demands he stop. He calls the woman Kamoi-sama. The woman repeats her order to stop. The guy says he'll remember this, turning to Hinata. Suzuki Hinata says he's never seen anything like this, as he's in the top 10 in the entire school. He thanks Kamuya-sama. Kamuya-sama remains silent. Suzuki Hinata says he needs to apologize and is surprised. The girl explains that a woman's heart is complex and calls him brother. Suzuki Hinata says he now understands what she meant. Then Suzuki Hinata yells, "Wah!" and makes a sharp movement toward the girl. You got the skill, freeze resistance. Due to high impact, he says he was attacked. The woman says it's incredibly cold and if it weren't for her skills, she would definitely freeze. She then explains that she doesn't understand why Kamoya-sama even intervened. Suzuki Hinata says he doesn't want to test his skills, so he needs to do something urgently. He doesn't know why Kamuya-sama attacked him, but explains that he doesn't want to freeze to death. He says it's self-defense. Then he rushes towards the girl. The girl clenches her teeth and looks forward. Suzuki Hinata says, surprised, huh? The girl cries and apologizes. The girl explains that she's too scared and can't stand it and apologizes again. Suzuki Hinata exclaims, what? And calls the girl Kamui-sama. The woman says she's truly asking for forgiveness, and he replies that he doesn't understand what's going on. The woman calls Suzuki Hinata Kamoe-san and says he's not ordinary. Suzuki Hinata says that he's called Level 0, although in reality he has incredible power, but no one notices it, not even the teachers. The woman explains that when Kai-kun called him for a few words, she hesitated. She says that out of fear she activated her S-rank ability, the Ice God's Blessing. The woman says he will kill Kai-kun with one blow and asks how he could have done it. The man reports that he constantly emits powerful blasts of cold air that instantly impede the enemy's movements. He explains that he can barely control his skill now, but if he's distracted for even a second, he could cause serious injury to his opponent. Suzuki Hinata says that the enemy easily got through his skill and went on the attack, and also saw him as an enemy. The girl says she's scared and doesn't want to die. The girl says she doesn't know what to do or what she can do. Suzuki Hinata says he doesn't understand what she means when she says she's scared, and asks if it's because she separated her from Kai-kun. The girl explains that if she loses control, she could unleash Kato's power from Kami, which is why she didn't attack. He takes a handkerchief and begins to wipe away the girl's tears, who shudders at his touch. He explains that there's no need to cry. The girl looks at him with surprise and tears in her eyes. Suzuki Hinata says he completely screwed up this time, and if there's anything he can do, he'll do it. The man says, Suzuki Hinata thanks him for his help and says that if he needs help in the future, he can contact him. He says he'll do everything in his power, absolutely everything. The girl asks why this guy is so kind to her. The girl says it's true. Suzuki Hinata declines and turns her head away. The girl explains that she can't answer the question. He says that then he can ask for a favor. Suzuki Hinata asks the girl if she's sure. The girl nods. The man explains that if he made the girl cry, he should apologize and do everything in his power, and the girl says that afterward, he should fulfill all her wishes. The man asks if Kamui-sama asks for it, then everything should be okay. A man and a woman are walking along a path against a backdrop of a building. The man says the building is the office of the company where he works. The woman says she's interested in seeing how things work there. The man explains that it's business hours now, and they can go inside. The woman says that being an S rank is incredibly difficult, and perhaps her lack of expression is due to the fact that she suppresses her emotions and keeps them under control. Suzuki Hinata says that if you're not careful, you can freeze, calling it a blessing from the ice god. He says he lives in the dorm. Kamui says, ah. He says, see you then. He explains that even Kamui is afraid of Kai-kun, and Kamui explains that she is a girl after all. The girl says, see you later. Suzuki Hinata replies, yes. The man tells Suzuki Hinata that he can't let the girl go alone and that he must see her to the very end. He says he's calling Kamui. Suzuki Hinata reveals that he has never had serious relationships with girls other than his sister and doesn't know what the right answer is, and asks what he should have done. A girl approaches Suzuki Hinata and asks if she can sit next to him. He reacts with surprise and agrees. The girl is delighted by the large amount of food and says itadakimasu, and he is surprised and says that there is a lot of food. The man at the table agrees, and the girl says she can't eat because she has a stomachache. Suzuki Hinata says Fujiki-kun looks like a cute little puppy, something he wants to protect. The man asks if Suzuki Hinata is just thinking about how cute he is. Suzuki Hinata responds with an ah sound. The girl says she's often told she's not manly and finds it rude, but he denies it. She asks how he is and says he seemed lost in thought. He asks if something's wrong. Suzuki Hinata says they had a hard time understanding girls and laughs at the word girls. He then explains that they walked home together, but when they reached the dorm, he left her alone. The girl says that's understandable. He says his sister always told him that he shouldn't let a girl go alone, and that he should see her to the very end. The girl laughs and asks why, and he asks if he said something funny. The girl says her sister's words make sense, but asks what Suzuki Hinata thinks. Suzuki Hinata explains that in the end, it's up to the girl herself whether she wants to be escorted or not, and asks what the girl thinks. Suzuki Hinata then says that he just thought that. He explains that it's better to ask if he wants to walk her home, and says that his sister always says the same thing. The girl says that a woman's heart is a complicated thing. He asks if that's true. The guy says he and his sister will get along great, and Suzuki Hinata says he won't give her up to anyone. The text message says it's a private training room. Suzuki Hinata asks if they're starting, and the girl replies, yes. The girl concentrates her energy. Flames begin to flare up around her, after which she releases a powerful fiery blast towards the guy. He says that he won't freeze. The woman says she wants to overcome her weakness. She explains that everything is fine and wants to master the ice god's blessing. Suzuki Hinata asks what it is. The woman expresses her determination to master this blessing. The girl says she wants more and asks why. He looks at her silently. The girl says she wants Suzuki Hinata to look at her more. Suzuki Hinata reacts with surprise. The man explains that because of Kaikun's gaze, she was unable to maintain control of the ice god's blessing. Suzuki Hinata understands the meaning of her. He says that he understands and will do everything in his power. The girl thanks him. Suzuki Hinata says that's all he can do, but he wants to help her overcome her difficulties. The girl remains silent. The girl asks Suzuki Hinata if he can give her a scary look and wonders if something is wrong. He replies that of course he can. The girl makes a sound of displeasure and looks straight ahead. Suzuki Hinata says that he is. Cage, the girl screams. The girl asks if he has really become even stronger since yesterday. He asks how and calls her Kamui-san. Suzuki Hinata says he learned a lot of skills yesterday, but his level didn't increase, so he shouldn't have gotten any stronger. The girl says she doesn't think so, and Suzuki Hinata says no. The girl says nothing happened and asks him to forgive her for crying again. He explains that there is no need to apologize and asks her not to blame herself because of him. The girl asks Suzuki why he's so kind to her. Suzuki explains that he needs to take responsibility because he made her cry. He explains that he has a younger sister who would definitely be angry with him, adding that she's the best, sweetest, and most caring little sister. The woman reports that now, without the burden of controlling her ability, Kamui-san has become much more emotional and that she laughs and cries so much. Suzuki Hinata says that the way she faces her injury is admirable, and in a way he envies her. He asks what he's going to do with all this ice. The girl replies, oh. He tells her that he's gotten a new skill, ice melt, due to the high difficulty, and says, great, that he'll be fine with it. The girl asks if something is wrong. Suzuki Hinata says he was just wondering if he could melt it with his powers. The woman explains that the ice god's blessing isn't ordinary ice, so it can't be melted, and even though she received personal permission to use this hall, it seems no one else can use it except her. He says this is an abuse of the student council's authority. Suzuki Hinata reports that the training hall is no longer usable and doesn't want the other students to hate Kamui-san because of it, but asks if he can. He reports that the skill Ice Melt has evolved into absolute ice disintegration. He says that he is now confident and that the skill has evolved. Suzuki Hinata reports that the ice has completely disintegrated. He asks if the ice has melted or disappeared completely. The girl explains that they definitely won't have any problems now, so they can go home, and Suzuki Hinata calls for Kamui-san. The girl says that this is impossible and starts denying it. Suzuki Hinata asks, isn't that the Ice Princess? The man says it's incredible and that they're on the same team. He's jealous. The woman apologizes. Kamui says that until tomorrow. He says, Kamui-san. Kamui asks if yes. Suzuki Hinata says he can walk the girl home and asks if she won't be bored. The girl asks what exactly he means. Suzuki Hinata explains that if the injury reoccurs, strange misunderstandings could arise. The girl is surprised and asks if that's true. He says he wants to take full responsibility. The girl asks him to do so and says she's cold, expressing excitement and embarrassment. Suzuki Hinata says that with this skill, he can remove the ice immediately. The girl puts her hand to her face. The girl says thank you and makes a sound of doubt. He says you're welcome. The man remains silent. Suzuki Hinata says, let's go then, and the girl agrees. It's been a few days since he and the girl started training together, and every day he makes Kamui-san cry. Suzuki Hinata says he wonders what his sister would think about this. The girl explains that she's telling him not to worry about it, but she doubts it's possible for a man. He says he's seeing her off as usual and thanks her. The woman says she's Irina, Hinata's mother, and says it's nice to meet her. The man asks how this happened. The text says it's Kamui's family. The woman says she heard about Suzuki Hinata from her daughter, and Suzuki Hinata says it's nice to meet you and gives her name. He says that she heard that he made her daughter cry every day and won't leave here alive, and then stabs the knife into the board. The man says that this is exactly the scenario. The woman asks to go through, and he is surprised that she is cut off. The man informs her that the young lady will be arriving soon and suggests they have some tea and take a stroll in the garden. Suzuki Hinata thanks him and says he's never been to such a place and is a little nervous. He asks who might be sitting by the window and greets him. The man asks if he noticed him. He replies that of course he did and asks if he has acquired the stealth detection skill. An explanation appears that Suzuki Hinata says the old man is staring at him so hard and says maybe he's too old. The old man says he's not old and delivers a blow that makes Suzuki Hinata scream in pain. He says it's HUD. How is he? The text block states that they have gained the skill of resisting mind reading due to external danger. The man says it's amazing. The man laughs and says Hinata has a keen eye. Suzuki Hinata is surprised and doesn't understand what's going on. The girl addresses Suzuki Hinata by name and asks if he looks good on her. He says it suits him very well and immediately corrects himself. The girl says the destructive force is simply insane and curses. Then they sit silently at the table. In a separate scene, the sound of a blow is heard. Suzuki Hinata says he's so nervous his throat is dry and wonders why she sat next to him when she usually sits across from others. He says she's so close and that Kamui-san sent. He explains that if this continues, he'll have to go to the bathhouse. The woman apologizes for the wait. The girl says the tea was delicious and he replies that it's nice to hear. The woman says that now they will start. Suzuki Hinata says ha in surprise, then asks in shock what they're planning to do with it. The woman explains that it's the Kamuya family's exclusive credit card and says Hinata-kun can spend as much as he wants. Suzuki Hinata exclaims ha in amazement. The woman apologizes to Suzuki Hinata and the girl says that it wasn't part of the deal. He says that if he uses it he can help his family and asks how much he can take. The woman says everything she did was for her daughter and the girl asks why. The woman smiles with tears in her eyes. The girl and Suzuki Hinata express surprise. The woman says it's easy to argue with her daughter and asks how many years have passed since the last time. The girl replies hesitantly. He says it's been years and asks Kamui if she really behaved the same way at home as she did at school. Suzuki Hinata says that every time she trained to the point of tears, she just wanted to go home and have a heart-to-heart talk with her family. Suzuki Hinata says that's impossible. He says he hasn't thought about it at all. The man asks Hinata-kun to let them always enjoy such moments with Hinata. The girl says she can't afford to be weak because she must protect those dear to her. Suzuki Hinata says he didn't expect such an answer and acknowledges her determination. He says that with his skill, he can easily stop the ice god's blessing from affecting Hinata, so they want to buy the time he spends with Hinata-san. The woman apologizes and says she can't accept the offer. The girl explains that her friendship with Kamui-san is more valuable than money. Suzuki Hinata declares that she will continue to help Kamui with his training and will do everything she can to ensure that, so he won't accept the offer. He says he wants to repay her for her trust. The girl listens to him with surprise and embarrassment. A woman asks if Suzuki Hinata agrees to be with her daughter. The girl reacts, and Suzuki Hinata says yes, as long as Kamuya-san agrees. The woman says that Hinata-kun has spoken out and that it's also very important for the Kaguya family, and then asks Hinata what she thinks. Hinata explains that it's so sudden. The woman shouts at Hinata. He abruptly gets up and leaves, and the woman calls for Kamui-san. Suzuki Hinata says this is bad, and if she continues, the estate could be frozen. He reports that the water seal skill wasn't acquired due to its difficulty. The woman says she needs to be alone and suggests that maybe it's better to let her run away. He looks at her. Suzuki Hinata reports that the stealth skill was acquired by passing through the gate and has evolved into absolute shadow. The girl swings her katana, then kneels. She looks tense and embarrassed. Suzuki Hinata says to Kamyu-san. He apologizes and says he was worried. The girl exclaims his name and asks why she's like this, explaining that she can't talk to people properly because of her skill and can't communicate with or even touch anyone. He turns to her, trying to get her attention. Suzuki Hinata says he initially made the girl cry because of himself and thought he should take responsibility for it, but then he realized he just wanted to be there for her. The girl reports that watching Suzuki Hinata work so hard every single day felt incredible. The girl says that for a very long time she couldn't touch anyone, but now she is happy and grateful. Suzuki Hinata says, ah. The old man says, wow, so hot. The man says he's the one. The girl exclaims that it's grandpa. He yells, "Ah," and says, "What?" The man asks, "What?" The man laughs and says, "Hinata found a good guy." Suzuki Hinata and the man chat, and the man asks how the man overcame the cold, and Suzuki Hinata explains that it's all thanks to a skill. The man asks if it's a skill. He reveals that even though he's called a useless level 0 researcher, he's actually the strongest in the world. Both he and the girl react with surprise. Suzuki Hinata says he can resist bullying. The man asks the old man if he knows anything about skills. The old man says he does, but won't tell you. He says he doesn't know what to do. Then the woman orders him to get married. The woman asks Hinata-kun to pretend he didn't hear what was said and agrees. He is surprised. The text states that the skill Enhanced Defense was acquired due to fear. The woman says she's glad to be back. Suzuki Hinata announces that they're home. Kamui Akira explains that he's Hinata's father and that his name is Kamui Akira. Suzuki Hinata says the word father with surprise, and Hinata greets her father and says she's glad to meet him. The woman says her mother already told her, but she still can't believe it. The man, shocked, says he's home. Another man turns to Suzuki Hinata and says he's incredibly grateful, to which he replies, "You're welcome." The woman says it's been a while. The girl smiles. The man says he's dreamed of a similar scene. Suzuki Hinata, "Thanks for dinner." The woman calls Hinata-kun. He turns around and says, "Huh?" The woman asks if something is wrong, Kamui-san. The woman asks to be called by her first name and then insists on being called by her first name. Suzuki Hinata is in charge. He explains that he needs time and says his name is Kamui-san. The girl says she's not sure she's ready for that and asks him to always call her. He replies that of course he will. The girl says she understands and asks him to be careful. The girl says that they definitely need to meet again next time. She explains that it's time for her to leave now and says goodbye. The woman says she wonders if he'll come back, and the girl replies, "Yes, Mom." The woman says he's been a great help, and the girl agrees. The woman calls him a good guy. The woman turns to a girl named Hinata and says the Kamui family will support her in any way they can. The woman says she was happy to see the girl smile again after so many years, but when he's not around, the girl says she'll go back to her room right now. The woman calls the girl her daughter and wishes her good night and sweet dreams. It is reported that dungeons exist all over the world and that there are so many E ranks that they are simply numbered. There are only 7 B rank dungeons and 2 A rank dungeons. It is stated that this is the E rank before Dungeon 117. Suzuki Hinata says he can't lose. He gives the man his license. The man asks about the level. He explains that everything is fine and shows a sign on his hand. The man answers, "Okay." The guard explains that he understands that Suzuki Hinata is probably a diligent person, but with his level, he can't let him in alone. He sees level 0 for the first time, apologizing. Suzuki Hinata says that means they won't let him in. He asks if he'll be able to sneak in, unnoticed. He tells them exactly. He explains that thanks to the flash, he gained the skill of stealth. The man talks about absolute stealth, previously calling it absolute shadow. He says the guard can't see him at all. The man says he is truly invisible to others. Suzuki Hinata yells to stop and makes a frightened sound. The man asks, "Hey." The blonde boy demands to know what he needs and asks to see his hand. The man then allows him to pass, and Suzuki Hinata says he was scared. He says they stop him all the time, and every dungeon has the same thing. Then he makes a TSK sound. The man says the students have left. Suzuki Hinata sighs. The skill, Dungeon Information, was used. The name is Tromley Prison. He says that everything here looks completely different from typical castles, and asks if this isn't the same dungeon he entered earlier. He also says that this is supposed to be Lucifer's fallen heaven and wonders if it's a troll prism. Suzuki Hinata says he's holding it, and the girl says it's her first time. The man strikes with an axe. The girl, boy, and man are happy, saying that it worked. He explains that thanks to inspiration, the skill Monster Analysis was activated, and thanks to this skill, they learned that in front of them is a stake. He explains that this monster's weakness is fire, and its rare drop is tiny. It is reported that the skill Tenderness was acquired based on the experience gained. Suzuki Hinata says that he squeezed too hard. He says he's gained the skill Tenderness and can now squeeze as much as he wants, and has already squeezed a dozen of them. The man reports that the magic stone never fell out, although he was hoping for at least one. The man notices that the creature is still hidden. Suzuki Hinata says he can't hit the target and suggests they attack together. Suzuki Hinata and the man simultaneously hit something. The man expresses surprise, and Suzuki Hinata reacts. The boy screams in amazement. The girl screams in surprise, too. He announces that they want to kill his dear Cole and calls the attackers barbarians, simultaneously taking a step. In the right panel, Suzuki Hinata speaks questioningly, noticing something. The left panel shows a slime jumping in the air, heading toward a sword stuck in a wooden platform. The guy makes a question mark. A drop of water appears on the pier. The text says the continuation will be on November 29th. Suzuki Hinata screams like a brute. A man in a cave with a sword asks where he is. The man breathes heavily and stares tensely ahead. The man with fangs prepares to attack. He reports that the monster analysis skill has been activated, and in front of them is Trommel, the floor boss, whose weakness is fire and whose rare drop is a small magic stone. Suzuki Hinata grabs a bat and deflects the attack of a demon who lunges at him with a fist. He screams and strikes the enemy. The man says too. The man expresses surprise. The woman reports there's another group. The man attacks the monster, plunging his sword into its back. Suzuki Hinata says that this is the group's work, and that it's cool how the man took advantage of the opportunity. He shouts that there's another troll here and expresses surprise. He tries to attack the troll, but it suddenly strikes him with a club, causing him to exclaim and curse. Suzuki Hinata screams. A huge monster deals a powerful blow to the ground. Two orcs with clubs ask if anyone else is here and order them to stop sitting around. Suzuki Hinata reports that the boss must be alone because there's only one group here. He says he doesn't understand what's going on. A guy says he'll cover another guy who makes a tiska sound and gets ready to go. Suzuki Hinata shouts thanks and expresses surprise. He attacks the enemy, striking their body. The enemy responds with a powerful blow from his club, and Suzuki Hinata continues to fight, shouting a battle cry. He strikes the creature, piercing it through the chest. A man stands behind and watches what is happening. The man is breathing heavily. Suzuki Hinata coughs, covering his mouth with his hand. He says, "Good shot, man," and thanks him for his help. The man explains that they still need to gather materials and asks how he is. He replies that he'll rest a bit and go home. The woman says that it's not unusual for bosses to show up more often. The woman says it's hard to be alone in such places, and the man explains that studying alone is always more effective. The woman explains that if he dies, he won't come back to life, and they're not in the game. The man smiles. Suzuki Hinata says that in that case, you have to be prepared for something like that. The man says, "Ahem." The man reports that if one troll spawns for each group, then a third one will also spawn. Suzuki Hinata explains that he was the third, meaning the third troll was his opponent, and it turns out he screwed up. Then Suzuki Hinata announces that he has been revived and will now face him himself. The man reports that he seems unseen, and then he can attack suddenly. He explains that a surprise attack deals great damage and speed, but the stealth disappears after the attack. The man explains that after receiving martial arts training, he can see the enemy's weak points, and Suzuki Hinata delivers a powerful blow. The man asks if the blow was powerful. Suzuki Hinata informs him that stealth has been cancelled until the next use in 60 seconds. He says that with his current attack power, he can't damage the enemy and asks what to do, wait for stealth to recharge, or try attacking again. The enemy says he can withstand one hit thanks to his increased defense. Suzuki Hinata says he'll try. The woman asks if he's just leaving school. Suzuki Hinata responds with surprise. The girl says hi, he says hello and explains that he was seen, even though he entered without permission. The girl says that he single-handedly defeated a large monster, to which he replies that the monster is still alive. The girl says that he has already defeated him and pokes the large creature in the chest. The creature falls. The girl says, "You see?" And Suzuki Hinata reacts with surprise. Then a thud is heard. The man reports that the monster is indeed dead. The girl laughs and says that monsters can't pretend to be dead. He asks in surprise if there aren't any and confirms that if the monster isn't moving, it's dead. The girl snorts. The girl says, "Look," and pokes at the dice. Suzuki Hinata says she's kind of careless. He shouts, "A." The man says he's unsure and tries to explain something. The girl asks what's wrong with him. The girl repeats the word vid with a question. The man tries to pronounce the word vid. The woman says everything is fine and reveals that she is wearing shorts under her clothes. Suzuki Hinata reacts with surprise. The woman laughs and asks if he wants some. He says no. The girl says, The girl announces that her boss is here. The orc moves forward. Suzuki Hinata says he's getting down to business, and the girl stretches her arms out to the sides, holding two objects in them. The girl says that now the guy will see her secret and orders him to watch. Then she asks him to enjoy. He is surprised. A woman says that the power of innocence. A man and woman enter a cave. Suzuki Hinata says she's fast and watches as the girl with the weapon quickly rushes to attack the monster. The man delivers a powerful punch that sends the girl flying backwards. The girl looks at the man, who is preparing for his next move. The man turns sharply and begins spinning rapidly. Suzuki Hinata says it's a magical weapon, and the other man says it's like this. The man delivers a powerful blow, causing an explosion of energy. The guy punches his opponent, who deflects the attack with his shield and attempts to counterattack. The guy continues to advance, encountering resistance from the enemy, and eventually delivers a powerful blow that knocks the opponent back. Suzuki Hinata looks at the approaching monster. The monster attacks with a powerful energy blast, and Suzuki Hinata deflects the attack. The monster is knocked back by the impact. The woman sighs, then asks how he is, who replies that he has disappeared. He decides to run away, hoping that the woman hasn't remembered his face and that they won't meet again, and the woman calls him out. Suzuki Hinata says ha and informs him that he has no choice. The girl says shuh and talks about canceling absolute stealth, then expresses admiration and asks how Suzuki Hinata does it and what kind of power it is. Suzuki Hinata speaks faster and asks to show himself. He says he can't believe the girl can hide everything and couldn't even sense his presence, and the girl explains that she has a special ability and thinks she was just lucky. He asks how she found him then. The girl says he's the type who doesn't socialize with people and asks if he has any friends. Suzuki Hinata makes a sound of surprise and coughs sharply. The girl laughs and asks if he's angry. He says he's not angry and then asks what's wrong with her. Suzuki Hinata explains that he's usually the one people start hating, but he's surprisingly courageous. He asks why the girl hid. The girl confirms she doesn't want to talk. Suzuki Hinata wonders if it would be bad if someone found out about her ability. The girl reacts with surprise. He asks the girl if she needs anything from him. The girl says she wants him to join her in a group. Suzuki Hinata says he can't believe it. The man says he's a security guard and warns that he won't let anyone through. The girl says she came here to fight. The girl rushes forward with a weapon in her hands, and Suzuki Hinata looks at her in surprise. Suzuki Hinata says she's fast. The man with the sword prepares to attack. The monster delivers a powerful punch, and the girl dodges it with a jump. The girl quickly runs toward the monster, who turns his back to her and prepares for his next move. The guy says it's a magical weapon, and Suzuki Hinata says it's like this. The guy kicks his opponent, who deflects the attack with his shield and tries to counter with his hand. Suzuki Hinata delivers a powerful blow to the monster, which charges at him with fury. Suzuki Hinata then stands in a fighting stance, ready for his next move, while the monster retreats, surrounded by smoke. The girl says she's tired and asks how the guy is. The guy says he's gone missing. The guy explains that it's best to run away and hopes the girl doesn't remember his face so they don't see each other again, but the girl screams at him to come out. The woman says she can't believe it happened. The man announces that he has arrived. The girl asks if Suzuki Hinata is there and hugs him from behind. Suzuki Hinata is surprised and asks how she did it, explaining that he shouldn't be visible. The girl says that he really isn't visible and asks him to show himself. Then the girl calls out to Suzuki Hinata, saying, the girl says that then she will cry. Suzuki Hinata screams in amazement. The girl says he needs to show it faster. The girl marvels and asks how Suzuki Hinata does it and what kind of power it is. Suzuki Hinata explains he has no choice and asks for silence, then announces that he has canceled the absolute stealth. He says he can't believe the girl can hide everything and couldn't even sense his presence, and the girl explains that she has a special ability and she was just lucky to find him. He asks how she found him then. The girl says he's the type who doesn't interact with people and asks if he has any friends. Suzuki Hinata reacts with surprise and pain, making noises. The girl laughs and asks if he's angry. He explains that he's not angry and asks what's wrong with her. Suzuki Hinata explains that people usually hate him for his masculinity, which is surprising. The girl asks if it would be bad if someone found out about Suzuki Hinata's ability and is surprised. The man asks why Suzuki Hinata hid and offers to talk, to which Suzuki X. He says he's being asked if he needs anything. The girl says she wants him to join a group with her. Suzuki Hinata says he can't believe it. He says he wants to join his group. The girl explains that she thinks this is the best option, otherwise her secret might be revealed. He says he doesn't understand what's going on in her head. The girl says she suggests they wait for him to respawn. Suzuki Hinata expresses joy and shouts, "Hooray!" The girl and Suzuki Hinata raise their hands. The girl laughs. Suzuki Hinata looks surprised. He says that she has a skill like a separate storage space that others use and asks where she gets all this stuff from, noting that it was the same with weapons. The girl says they haven't met yet. Suzuki Hinata says they definitely haven't. The girl claps her hands. Shino says her name is Shino and asks to just call her Shino, adding that there is no other way. He says that he is a he and calls himself Hinata. The girl asks if the guy is in the second group and clarifies if he's a first-year student. The guy replies that he's in the third. The man explains that it's their first time seeing each other, so it's logical they're not in the same class. The girl says he's in the class next to hers and expresses regret. The girl says she heard about an S-rank girl in the third. Suzuki Hinata confirms that this is true, and the guy says that Kamui is very famous. The woman says that Suzuki Hinata has a surprisingly strong rival nearby. He asks, "Rival?" The man reacts to this. Suzuki Hinata says, "Here he is," and the girl says she'll go head on. Suzuki Hinata says, yeah, and explains that this is his first battle in a group, and the girl explains that he should flank the enemy from behind. The orc growls and rages. The girl, armed with a shield and club, quickly charges forward. He leaps toward the orc, intending to strike. The girl says she needs to be quick, and the man expresses surprise. The girl watches with wide eyes. The man delivers a powerful blow to the opponent. Suzuki Hinata says the girl is surprised. The girl asks if he's already dead. Suzuki Hinata explains that the weak points were more effective than he expected. On the stage, the girl kicks the large creature, after which Suzuki Hinata looks at his defeated opponent. He asks what they'll do with the materials, and the girl replies that they can take them and is surprised that that's all. Then he says, "Don't complain later," and calls it cutting up a monster. The girl says they'll continue the hunt, and Suzuki Hinata is surprised there will be another hunt. Suzuki Hinata reports that he's collected some good materials. The girl says it's okay to go back. The woman says he's already gone missing and explains that she can't let anyone else see her. She then says she wants them to be alone until the very end, otherwise the guy will run away. Suzuki Hinata, surprised, asks for his hand, and the woman asks him to do it then. He says that if he escapes, he'll break into the third group, and confirms that he understands. The girl leaves, and the three men watch her go. The girl says she can't go any further, and Suzuki Hinata says he's not going to let her go. The girl smiles and hums. The girl says they've already left and offers to show themselves. She asks him to show himself, to which the guy replies that it's fine. The girl says that the secrecy has been cancelled. The guy laughs and calls the girl Milady. The girl is surprised. The guy asks where the girl learned such manners and who she is, and then explains that. Suzuki Hinata says her interlocutor has a sister. The girl explains that she has the same smile and that it reminds her too much of her sister. The girl says he's truly amazing and has a great stealth ability, which allows him to enter the dungeon. He explains that he's ordinary and not at all strong, though the girl points out that he is strong and would have been let in anyway. The girl says she heard him. The woman asks if Suzuki Hinata will be there tomorrow and says she'll be going to E9D herself, after which she says they'll meet there then. The woman clarifies that they'll be in the same group, to which Suzuki Hinata replies that he understands. The woman says goodbye, telling him not to be late. The image contains no text or speech, only an image of the building. Suzuki Hinata says he's having trouble with his girlfriend again and asks if Hinata is having a hard time. Hinata says he's surprised he was predicted that way. Suzuki Hinata asks Fuji to tell him which dungeon he went to and says he has the same look on his face. He says he's heard that many explorers die in places like this and says he'll try his best not to be a burden to anyone. The man is surprised and calls it amazing. The girl explains that she had strong comrades, and he says that even so, he's still. The guy asks, "Two types?" The girl tells Hinata that there are two types of explorers, those who explore old floors and those who strive to explore new floors. The man explains that by exploring old floors, one can prepare in advance and reduce risks. Suzuki Hinata reports that some people are eager to explore unknown lands, while others often come face to face with death. He asks if it's so dangerous. Is it worth taking such risks? The girl explains that many people think so, but there are huge benefits, and shows that one is flying there. She explains that it's quite easy to raise the explorer rating by running previously unknown bosses and completing difficult tasks. Suzuki Hinata says these are special things that ordinary people can't get, truly exclusive. Suzuki Hinata asks if these are special things. He states that for the sake of this award, he will do everything possible to reach first place. He explains that the current first place is occupied by an unknown person who cannot be surpassed by anyone, and he has an S rank. At the next research ranking, an unknown person is at the top of the rankings. The girl asks who this person is and what these special awards are, and also inquires if Fuji knows anything about them. Suzuki Hinata says they should ask when they have time, and wonders why he even cares about this ranking. The woman says he can't be late at 10 a.m. and reminds him of his promise. He panics and says he's late because it takes an hour to get to the E90 and is worried about what she'll say if he's late. A woman reports E90. A woman says what is reflected in these eyes. The text blocks inform that the dungeon information skill is called Jigen Prison and that everything was possible thanks to extreme acceleration. Suzuki Hinata says he made it. The girl releases the bird. Suzuki Hinata reacts to this. The woman says she's been waiting a long time and makes a frightened sound. The woman demands that he show up immediately when he arrives, and he apologizes and laughs. Hinata Suzuki says he's going to go explore the dungeon. The girl remarks that he's always a bit secretive. Hinata Suzuki senses a monster, and the girl points in the direction, saying that's where they're headed. Hinata Suzuki asks if she can explore the area too. The monsters are analyzed, and it's revealed that this is a weak monster called Kuna. Its weakness is wind, and its rare drop is a magic stone. He says that today is a repeat of yesterday, to which the girl agrees. The image shows a close-up of a roaring beast with its mouth open. The girl says that it can't be and reports that it is not the animal they were looking for. The girl strikes with her sword. Suzuki Hinata says the color is different from yesterday. Suzuki Hinata jumps on the large animal and attacks it. He notices the bird take off sharply and expresses surprise. Then he looks forward with fear. The girl smiles. The woman tells Suzuki Hinata to pick up all the materials today. Suzuki Hinata thanks him. The man says she killed her so easily, and the woman adds that Shino seems to be a very powerful researcher. The top panel on the right depicts the sound of a blow to the forest. On the left, a clenched fist is shown. In the center, a close-up of the beast, its eyes and mouth wide open, is making a loud noise. In the bottom right it says, "Great, he's used to fighting with a kuna." The girl tells Hinata to look there and says that there is an entrance to the boss's quarters. Hinata responds with a question. Suzuki Hinata reports that the boss of floor E90 then grabs the girl by the hand and says, "That's it, let's run." He asks if this is the area before the boss room and reports that no other explorers are visible here. The girl explains that E90 is special. The entrance to the local boss is constantly moving. The man says that such dungeons also exist. The woman says it's time to go faster. Suzuki Hinata replies that he understands and asks not to cling. He says, Monster analysis says it's a weak gigamonster with a weakness to light magic and a rare drop a potion. Suzuki Hinata reports that it is the floor boss. The man says that he is huge. He runs towards the huge beast with his mouth open and sharp teeth, and then delivers a powerful kick to it. Suzuki Hinata reports that the dungeon manual said that if there are two of them, they should split up. The woman tells him to attack from both the left and right. The woman says the strategy is the same as before and asks Hinata to watch the enemy's attacks closely. The woman explains that he needs to be careful because the enemy breathes fire. He expresses surprise. The image shows a powerful stream of water directed at a man who is trying to resist the pressure. Suzuki Hinata jumps and kicks the vortex. Suzuki Hinata says, "Damn," and reacts to the wolf-like creature's appearance. Suzuki Hinata continues her attack, kicking the creature surrounded by the vortex. He shouts Shino's name. Shino deflects the fire attack using his weapon. A girl throws an object and says, "Bam!" The girl creates a powerful explosion. Suzuki Hinata says it can't be true, and says it can't be true. The man takes a fighting stance in front of a huge wolf and a girl with a club. The top panel on the right shows a wolf emitting a loud roar. Below, on the left, a girl kicks the wolf's mouth. On the right, a girl jumps and strikes the wolf from above. A kick is shown below. Suzuki Hinata kicks the enormous monster. The monster roars. Suzuki Hinata leaps into the air, preparing for her next move. He screams, then jumps on the back of the large beast and strikes it. The girl says she is not going to give up. Suzuki Hinata asks if it's over yet. The girl tells him it worked and they won. The woman explains that the beast isn't moving and pokes it, to which Suzuki Hinata replies that it is. The girl says she didn't think they could defeat him so easily. He says he didn't either. Suzuki Hinata says it all happened thanks to the girl standing next to him. The girl says she now understands what kind of boy he is. Suzuki Hinata asks what she said. He reports that the entrance to the boss's room has indeed disappeared and explains that it is impossible to predict where it will appear, but they are very lucky to have found it. Suzuki Hinata says it drops very expensive potions, but they're out of luck. The woman tells Hinata she's getting hungry. He asks if it's time for a snack. The man suggests they go back to town. The woman happily invites them to go. The woman unexpectedly hugs Suzuki Hinata, who, surprised, calls her Shino. The girl says that if Suzuki Hinata is this close, he will be uncomfortable, but if he becomes invisible, then she will be as uncomfortable as yesterday. Suzuki Hinata sighs. The girl asks for forgiveness in advance. He calls her Shino. The girl says she will try. Suzuki Hinata notices a girl who suddenly becomes gloomy and asks what's wrong. He explains that just a moment ago she was glowing, and a gloomy atmosphere has suddenly descended upon the city. He says, "Shino?" He says she's afraid of something? Then he looks at her with concern. Suzuki Hinata says he remembers his sister's first time at a shopping mall and feeling dizzy from the crowd, and suggests that maybe Shino is the same way or has some kind of trauma related to people. The girl says she's asking if it's gotten any easier. The woman says she can't let Suzuki Hinata die because she needs him. Suzuki Hinata says he can't die and asks him not to. The man squeezes the woman's hand. The girl says that everyone has their own scars. The strong can actually be weak, and we all go through difficult times sooner or later. The girl apologizes. Suzuki Hinata says she has nothing to apologize for. He says that they've left the main street, and she should feel at least a little better, but the girl cuddles up to Suzuki Hinata. Suzuki Hinata asks why she's having such a hard time, then reacts with surprise to something. The girl touches her face. A crowd of people is walking along the sidewalk outside. A girl says she's feeling sick and has a headache, but the man remains silent. Suzuki Hinata touches the girl's face with his hand and makes a sound of surprise. He asks how the girl copes with this. The girl is surprised. He looks at her with concern. The girl hands Suzuki Hinata two small objects and says that here. Suzuki Hinata says, then why aren't you wearing headphones? He puts the ring on his finger. The girl says that she walked with him and reminds him of this. The girl says that she didn't notice right away. Suzuki Hinata asks him to forgive him, and the girl retells his words with a question, asking for forgiveness. The girl says she can't believe he actually came here and explains that she didn't expect to see him. He says he came to help. Suzuki Hinata explains that the girl needs headphones to listen to music and to distract herself from the monsters around her. He says that she might not even be able to hear his voice right now, but he doesn't want to make her suffer or worry. He says that Shino knows this will happen, but she still went with him and asks if this will satisfy Shino. The woman says there's a huge wall between them now. Suzuki Hinata says he wants to do something, but he doesn't know what exactly he can do. The man explains that the same thing is happening again as with Kamui. Suzuki Hinata again says he doesn't know what he can do. He asks for his power and begs for it, then thanks his partner. A message appears stating that he has gained the telepathy skill. Suzuki Hinata says he can't afford to be weak. The woman is silent. He speaks to Shino. Shino is surprised. He suddenly hugs Shino. The girl says she has no strength, and Suzuki Hinata makes a sound similar to crying. Suzuki Hinata explains that she only had headphones and that she simply had no one to turn to. No one understood her, and she simply had no one to rely on. Suzuki Hinata says that maybe it's not what she expected, but everything seems fine. The girl thanks him. The man turns to Suzuki Hinata, and the girl reacts with surprise. He says okay, and the girl thanks him. The text says Shino is back to normal, and Hinata and Shino understand each other. A man asks if they can still find the magic stone dealer. Another man says his men have been monitoring the market for several days, but haven't been able to find contact, adding that this is happening at the worst possible time. Suzuki Hinata says he didn't think he'd find something like this. A man tells you not to worry and that this is the safest place in the country, while another man warns you not to open the case here. The man says that the strongest countries are here after all. A man asks what they'll do with the magic stone. Another man explains that for now, it could be sold to Kagura or Kamui. A third man says it's those two clans again and asks who leaked the information to them. A man and a woman are sitting on a couch, and the woman says she knew it was them. The man sighs. The man in uniform with a beard shouts that he doesn't understand what kind of idiots are revealing the clan's secrets, calling them fucking idiots and slamming his fist on the table. Suzuki Hinata tells Marshall that she should have given them all the information right away and reminds them that her Kamui clan helped them. Marshall turns to Akari and asks how their clan is doing, noting that the Kagura clan has always helped them too. The woman says their help is more useful. The man shouts that their clan has nothing but a long history and asks what right they have to take what should be theirs. The man replies that the Kagura clan will receive it. The woman orders the marshal to hand over the magic stone. The woman says they're much more important than the others, and the man indignantly replies that it would be better if his sister had him. Suzuki Hinata says that's the hardest part, and the girl explains that if she covers her ears, there won't be any problems. The woman expresses dissatisfaction. The girl says that she wants her sister to at least go to the estate, and the woman explains that her sister can't even leave the house. The man says that the magic stone might work, so they're willing to buy it with all the money they have. The man asks if she's serious. Akari explains that she's obviously serious. The man says that all the riches are worth it, so his sister can live a normal life, and that he wants to do the same. Suzuki Hinata suggests settling the matter in a duel, and the man agrees. The man orders them to stop and states that he hasn't decided anything yet. The woman says that if they fight, one of them could be seriously injured or even die. The man explains that this is a warning. The man says that if one of them dies, he will throw this stone to the bottom of the sea. The man says, K. The girl says, K. Kagura Toma says that if they can find a merchant, they might be able to obtain a second stone, and asks them to wait at least a little. Akari Kamui explains that she will ensure that each clan receives its own stone and demands that they keep the waters quiet until this is clear. The girl says they need to go there, the guy says she seems to have cheered up, and the girl explains she can't believe she just cried. The man in the cafe greets them and says, "Welcome." Suzuki Hinata says welcome. The girl says yes, and very good, and orders him to do this more often. Suzuki Hinata says he decided to act out the moves even though he said them telepathically and asks if it worked well. The girl says it felt like it was real. The saleswoman asks what they'll order. The girl replies, "Whipped chocolate with cream." He says it's a spell. The girl says that she has long wanted to try it, and at the same time shows the dessert, saying, "Ta-da." Suzuki Hinata asks how long the girl has been drinking the drink, and she replies, "With someone." The girl offers Suzuki Hinata a taste, and he agrees and expresses surprise at the taste, saying the sweetness and bitterness of the coffee go well together. He asks if that was the purpose of the spell. The girl asks if it's tasty and clarifies that this is the guy's first time. He says, "Haha." The girl says that's true. Suzuki Hinata says it's like he's hanging out with his little sister. The girl asks if he's comparing her to her little sister. Suzuki Hinata responds with surprise, saying, "What?" The man remains silent. The girl explains that besides that, the guy laughs and says, "Aha." The woman says it's time to go. Suzuki Hinata reacts with surprise. He says they don't have much time and suggests they get going. Then he and the girl start moving. The woman says they have arrived. The man responds with surprise. Suzuki Hinata says that Kamui's house was big, but Shino's house is huge and calls it a mansion. He asks Shino what it is. Shino remains silent. The girl says she doesn't want to go home. Suzuki Hinata explains that her parents will worry. The girl says that's the problem and that it's unlikely. Suzuki Hinata reacts to this. He asks if her last name is really Kagura and tells her that it is. Her name is Kagura Shino. The girl explains that she comes from a famous family, even called a samurai family. The man explains that Kamui in her class is in the same situation and asks why she immediately. The woman says she didn't mean to evoke any strange emotions, but at least now Suzuki Hinata will treat her normally. Suzuki Hinata says that makes sense. The man says Hinata is so kind. The woman says Hinata. The girl asks if they will go out together again. Suzuki Hinata replies that of course. He says that they are in the same group. The girl agrees. The image shows the E117 purchasing center. The man says he doesn't understand what's going on. The man in uniform stands silently. Suzuki Hinata says he doesn't understand why there are so many soldiers. Then he expresses surprise. The man says that if anyone has a magic stone, they should contact them immediately. He says that this is the same magic stone that he recently sold. The man says that this is. Suzuki Hinata says why? A man says he noticed him. Another man says he's suspicious. Suzuki Hinata explains he needs to stay calm. The text says he's acquired the poker face skill due to hardship. The two men turn around. He sighs, leaning on the table, and says they need to sell everything they need. He reports that the material from Gijay is significantly more expensive than the rest of the Rankops. He's happy that it worked out so well. Suzuki Hinata says that the rabbit monster stones cost 300,000 yen and asks why the stones are so cheap. He notices that the tiny magic stone costs 1,000 yen, while the small magic stone costs 3,000 yen. He then becomes surprised and asks, a guy with a backpack and a man with a bag look at each other with question marks above their heads. He notices a large number on the sign and says something is broken, wondering where all those zeros come from. He then asks what happened and reports that the soldiers. Suzuki Hinata says he's scared and says he'll sell the material and go home. The girl says she's full. He says that hunger resistance only works in extreme cases, but he still feels hungry. The girl says she forgot about dessert. He says she still eats amazingly. The girl asks where Suzuki Hinata went today, and he says that he was at the E90. He reports that Ogo visited another place where visibility is poor and the boss room is hard to find, so the place is unpopular, but the local materials sell for more than D-rank materials. Suzuki Hinata says that D-rank dungeons are crowded, making it difficult to sell materials from there for a high price. The girl asks if this is true. Suzuki Hinata explains that if he wants to reach D rank, he better earn some money in E90 first, to which the girl agrees. He says they need to focus on potions and asks if it's worth going to E90. He then says the third week of school has already flown by. The man notices Kamui. Suzuki Hinata says, "Ka," then asks to see, explaining that it's the same thing. The two men respond by stating that it is indeed so, expressing surprise and delight. He says it's the Ice Princess. The girl says she always has a cold expression and icy abilities. That's what they say about her. She says it's true, and it's funny that this description fits her perfectly. Suzuki Hinata looks at the girl. He reveals that even though he's called a useless level 0 researcher, he's actually the strongest in the world. The next scene shows the man standing, and then a group of 3 people walking toward the building. A boy greets a girl, calling her Kamui-san. The girl, surprised, says Hinata-kun. Suzuki Hinata says good morning and explains that this is normal in front of him, but he's worried. The girl tells him it's the complete melting of the ice and asks if he's even stronger than before. The guy says it doesn't seem like it, but the girl says it's true. The girl asks who it is and says that isn't it, 0. Suzuki Hinata asks why someone like that even studies at this school. A boy says they can't afford to lose because it would mean the end for them. A man explains that if they lose, their team will fall apart and no one will be able to protect the school. Another man says they must fight to the end for the sake of the future. A man with short hair says they must unite. The guy says that maybe he should start adjusting to Kamui-san. The man and the guy at the table look at them intently. The girl listens. Suzuki Hinata informs him that if he can't win, he'll leave the club. He explains that he has no intention of giving up and is determined to prove his strength. A guy grabs Suzuki Hinata by the collar. He says Kamui-san only comes around when he's not around, and the girl says they'll see each other later. The guy calls out to Hinata, and he replies, yes. The guy says he's been getting along well with the Ice Princess lately and calls the other man a bastard. The man says that's normal for a 0 like him. Suzuki Hinata thinks that's it again. It is said that many people call Kamui-san an ice princess, but she does not radiate coldness but simply tries not to show emotions in public, which is why someone jokingly called her that, and others quickly picked up on it. Suzuki Hinata says that it's not true. Then a hand with a tattoo is shown. The girl says she saw Kamui-san smile and her genuine emotions. He says Kamui-san isn't an ice princess, and the guy asks, huh? Suzuki Hinata says she shouldn't be labeled based on her appearance alone, and that the man has no idea how hard she works every day and knows nothing about her. The man reacts with tension and surprise. Due to rage, the skill intimidation was acquired. He shouts that he never will. The man makes a sound expressing tension. Suzuki Hinata screams, clenching his fist and preparing to attack. The man tenses and makes a strained noise. Suzuki Hinata looks forward with fury. The guy says that a weakling like him shouldn't pretend to be tough. Suzuki Hinata delivers a powerful kick to a man. He steps forward sharply. A man with sharp features and a tense expression screams. He throws his hand back sharply. The girl screams, Hinata-kun. 2 men simultaneously strike each other. Suzuki Hinata says he can't afford to lose because that would mean the end. The man says he doesn't intend to give up either and intends to show all his strength. He tells Shino not to kill him. Shino asks for mercy. The man tells Shino's name with surprise. Suzuki Hinata now also says, Insect Princess. The man makes a tisk sound. He asks what's happening to him for Kamui-san's sake and says he wanted to kill her. The girl turns to Suzuki Hinata, and the guy next to them calls out to Gaikun. The guy with blonde hair shouts, to hell with it and don't get cocky, weakling. Suzuki Hinata says that if he can't win, he can't get stronger. He explains that he doesn't want to give up and intends to keep fighting. The guy screams that it hurts. He says that he was only lightly touched and that it's okay, so be it. The girl offers to go. Suzuki Hinata agrees. The man is lying on the ground. He announces that the continuation of Chapter 9 will be released on May 30th and that it can be read in advance in the Katakomi app. The man says he will continue. The woman turns to Suzuki Hinata and says that he was going to kill him, right? Suzuki Hinata remains silent, expressing concern. The girl says that they have known each other for a very short time, but she is sure that he is not that kind of person, and if he had not stopped, he would have definitely died. The boy explains that he honestly thought he could hit her on the back of her defenseless neck, and that it would at least somehow compensate for Kamui-san's insult. But he really didn't want to kill Kaikun. The girl calls out to Suzuki Hinata, and he starts to speak but can't finish. A girl addresses Suzuki Hinata by name. Suzuki Hinata stands next to another girl who is holding his hand. Kagura Shino says it's nice to meet you and introduces herself. Kamui Hinata tells him her name. Suzuki Hinata tells them to wait and asks what's going on. He explains that he was just one step away from killing someone and asks how it all came to this. The girl explains that Kamui-san's cold aura needs to be dispelled first. The other girl says that means it's his power. The girl on the right says, Hinata-kun. The girl on the left is silent. Suzuki Hinata explains that it seemed like Kagura-san was pestering him. Kagura-san says that's absolutely not the case and that she was actually worried about him. The woman says she was worried. He says that what Shino says is true. The woman expresses bewilderment. The guy says that it's clear now, and the girl says that this is what happened. A woman asks Suzuki Hinata if she can ask a question. The girl asks Suzuki Hinata if he considers himself weak, and he replies that of course he does. The girl then reminds Suzuki Hinata of their first encounter with the troll and explains that the troll only had one external wound, meaning he took him out with one blow. The woman says that an ordinary person can't do that. He asks if it's true. The woman says that he just hit a weak spot. The girl turns to Kamui-san and tells him she knows about Hinata-kun's special power. Hinata is surprised and asks why she's surprised. Kamui-san is surprised and says yes, yes. The boy asks if he really has such a power. Hinata exclaims that. The girl says it's a trick where the guy disappears. Suzuki Hinata says it's not that special. The girl reacts sheepishly. The girl says he disappeared. The girl says it's cool that there's no presence, no sound, but for some reason her voice can still be heard. Suzuki Hinata explains that even if Shino doesn't understand the nature of this thing, maybe it really is something special. The girl with the bow explains that her power is to detect every. He explains that he wears headphones to drown out everything else, otherwise he can't stand it. And because of this, people think he ignores them, which is why they nicknamed him the Insect Princess. The guy explains that Kai-kun used to call her that, and now he calls her Insect Princess. The girl says, Hinata-kun. Suzuki Hinata says he can't stand it. He starts to speak but doesn't finish his sentence. A girl explains that they are given labels like Ice Princess, Insect Princess, and another girl says that they don't know anything about the person, but they still insult her. The girl explains that the Kamui-san she knows is hardworking, takes care of her family, laughs and cries a lot, and has a warm heart, and Shino is also a wonderful person. Suzuki Hinata says that's all. The man says that everyone around her just throws around such insults.